Are you ready, Mr. Mayor?
I'm ready.
Go.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Beaverton Voters Forum for the 2012 general election. Before I get going, I'd like to introduce the councilors that are here. Councilor King, Ian King here. Councilor Mark Sansucci. And Councilor Kathy Stanton is right there. And I didn't spot the others. So I'm Beaverton Mayor Denny Doyle, and I'd like to thank all of you for attending tonight's educational and informative event. Tonight's forum is co-sponsored by the Beaverton Committee for Citizen Involvement and the City of Beaverton. Franklin Delano Roosevelt once said, "Democracy cannot succeed unless those who express their choice are prepared to choose wisely. The real safeguard of democracy, therefore, is education." So hopefully tonight you'll find it that way. So it's your opportunity to listen and learn more about the candidates and issues for the upcoming election so you can make better choices with clear understanding. We'll be hearing from candidates from our local legislative districts, candidates for state BOLI commissioner, as well as advocates representing the proposition and opposition for state ballot measure 84. And before I introduce our moderator, I'd remind you, if the phone rings tonight, it's not somebody seeking campaign donations. It's the Beaverton Education Foundation raising money for our schools. With that, I'd like to introduce our moderator, former Beaverton Committee for Citizen Involvement Chair, Mr. Eric Schmidt, a great friend of the city.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for being here. We really appreciate your being in City Hall tonight because there's a little competition for this voters forum. I understand there's a small debate involving a guy named Ryan and a guy named Biden, but this is going to be a lot more entertaining, believe me. We have Lincoln and Douglas and a whole lot of other folks lined up for you tonight. As Mayor Doyle mentioned, tonight's forum is co-sponsored by the Beaverton Committee for Citizen Involvement and the City of Beaverton. BCCI, Beaverton's Committee for Citizen Involvement, is composed of one representative from each of the city's neighborhood associations, NACs, you've probably heard of them, along with 8 at-large members who are appointed by the mayor and by the city council. BCCI is an advisory council for the city council. In addition, BCCI has and continues to sponsor educational activities designed to promote public participation in Beaverton city government. And since its inception, BCCI has been active in public involvement policies, especially when it comes to land use issues. Our audience tonight, for those of you who are watching us on television, is able to submit questions, and we're asking them to fill out a yellow card and hand it in, and we'll put it on as we can. Give those questions to our candidates. We can't guarantee that we'll get all of the questions asked, but we'll try. There is information in your green packets, ladies and gentlemen, here at City Hall for information to contact the candidates. The order of the candidates' opening and closing statements is based on a drawing by BCCI volunteers and the Voters Forum Planning Committee. So BCCI drew some names out of the hat, and that will determine who goes first. We have 2 lovely and talented and experienced timekeepers tonight, Sharon Dunham and Terry Lawler. They've done this before. It's not their first rodeo, so they know what they're doing, and when I see the times, we're going to ask the candidates to stick to those times. We will exhaust the candidates with their time frames. Gentlemen, be forewarned. So our first race involves the state of Oregon's commissioner for the Bureau of Labor and Industries, also known as BOLI. BOLI's mission is to protect employment rights, advance employment opportunities, and to protect access to housing and public accommodations free from discrimination. With us tonight are the incumbent commissioner, Brad Avakian, and his opponent, State Senator Bruce Starr. Gentlemen, thank you both for coming to Beaverton tonight. Brad Avakian was raised in Washington County. He's a product of Oregon's public schools. He graduated from Oregon State University in 1984 with a Bachelor of Science in Psychology, and he graduated from the Lewis and Clark Law School in 1990 with a Juris Doctorate. As a civil rights attorney, Mr. Avakian fought for fair wages, good working conditions, and the right to organize and bargain. In 2008, the former labor commissioner in the state of Oregon retired, and Mr. Avakian was appointed to the post by then-Governor Ted Kulongoski. Since 2008, he has worked hard to strengthen civil rights enforcement, stop wage theft, and bring career and technical education back to our middle and high schools. Mr. Avakian and his wife Debbie currently live in Washington County, where they raise their 2 children. Senator Bruce Starr is a successful small businessman who cares about Oregon and its future as one of the best places to live and raise a family in the United States. Mr. Starr is a native of Hillsborough and a graduate of Portland State University. After graduating from Portland State, he started his own construction company focused on residential and commercial roofing and repair. Since 1999, Mr. Starr has served in the Oregon legislature in both the House and Senate. His priorities have reflected the needs of a rapidly growing region, including education reform, transportation investments, and economic development incentives. Mr. Starr is married to Rebecca. They live in Hillsborough with their 2 children. So, according to our volunteers, Mr. Avakian, you drew the first spot. You have 2 minutes. 1 minute. 1 minute? 1 minute 30. Thank you.
Eric, thanks so much. I'm Brad Avakian, Oregon's Commissioner of Labor and Industries. Debbie and I both grew up in Washington County, and we raised our children here. I was a civil rights attorney, served as one of Beaverton's state representatives and state senators, and now serve as your Commissioner of Labor and Industries. As Commissioner, I see that Oregon's workers are paid the wages that they're owed, that they're kept free from discrimination on the job, and that Oregon has the best trained and most ready workforce that you can find anywhere on the globe. I've taken on corporations and put more than $15 million back in the pockets of workers who were cheated on the job. I've taken on equal pay for equal work to see that Oregon's women have a level playing field on the job, and returned 21st century shop classes to Oregon's public schools to give Oregon businesses a reason to expand and create jobs right here at home. I'm Brad Avakian, your Commissioner of Labor and Industries, and these are my priorities.
Thank you, Mr. Avakian. Mr. Starr.
Thank you, Brad, and I also want to thank the Beaverton Committee for Citizen Involvement in the City of Beaverton for hosting this Candidates Forum. I am Bruce Starr. I had the privilege of serving in the Oregon Legislature representing Western Washington County. My time in the legislature has been focused really on creating economic opportunity for all Oregonians, creating jobs, creating an environment where small businessmen and women can invest and grow their enterprises here, not just in Washington County, but statewide. That dedication, that particular priority will not change for me when I'm elected as Oregon's next commissioner of the Bureau of Labor and Industries. We need to have a labor commissioner that's laser focused on creating economic opportunity for all Oregonians, whether they live in Beaverton or Bandon or Burns. And I've been to those places in this campaign, and I believe that we need to have a commissioner that's focused on creating jobs. You know, we have had higher than the national average in unemployment for almost a decade in this state. That's a crying shame, and we need to elect state leaders. I would suggest the next commissioner of the Bureau of Labor and Industry that will focus his energy on working with Oregon's job creators so that they can invest time and energy and money in growing employment in our state. Too many of our friends and neighbors are out of work, and we need to focus, laser focused on putting our friends and neighbors back to work. That's what I'll do as Oregon's next labor commissioner.
Thank you, gentlemen. We have a new tradition here at the Voters Forum. It's a couple of years old. We have members of the Mayor's Youth Advisory Council asking the first question of our candidates, and our first Mayor's Youth Advisory member is Allie Hyazen. And you have the first question, Miss.
Thank you. Our first question would be, Oregon's unemployment seems to be hovering between 8.7% through 8.9%. As I look towards getting a college education in the near future, I know that 50% of college graduates are currently underemployed or unemployed. What can and will you do as Labor Commissioner to help create jobs for all Oregonians and to improve on this percentage rate by the time I graduate from college?
Mr. Avakian.
Allie, it's a terrific question, and it's important to know what the role of the Labor Commissioner really is in that solution. Businesses call me all the time that want to come to Oregon and create jobs here, or businesses are already here and want to expand, and you know what they tell me? They don't know where they're going to get their locally trained workers. They don't trust our system to provide the workers they need. That's why last year I brought together the diverse group of labor unions and business associations and educators to unanimously pass the bill that's going to restore 21st century shop classes to the middle schools and high schools. And you know what? When school doors opened last month for returning students, 21 middle schools and high schools had fully restored programs. That is the first step in a 10-year plan to provide the best workforce training system you can find anywhere. That's what's going to inspire businesses to come here and create jobs.
Mr. Starr.
I would suggest that that what we need to do is focus on the regulations that strangle businesses today and regulations that are under the control of the Bureau of Labor and Industries. There are 3 specific regulations that today that relate to how you fire or release employees. Those regulations have been identified by business owners that want to locate here but aren't. There's a myriad of regulations. I believe that the commissioner has the ability to roll back. Why? So that we can incent companies to come here. Not regulations that are going to harm workers in any way, but we need to create an environment that's conducive to businesses to locate here. We need to have a labor commissioner that's focused on creating jobs. When my incumbent friend took office, unemployment in the state was under 6%. It's now been over 8% for a very, very long time. And we need to have a labor commissioner that's focused on creating jobs and creating jobs for young people coming out of college, but we also have so many of our friends and neighbors today that are out of work. And I would suggest that we need to have a labor commissioner that works collaboratively in a partnership basis with Oregon's job creators, where the lines of communication are open, where there's a free-flowing conversation, where the labor commissioner is there to respond and appropriately react so that we can put people back to work, so that as young people come out of college, out of school, they're not faced with the situation that too many of our college kids are faced with today. That's the challenge that this race is all about, is putting people back to work.
Thank you, gentlemen. Next question goes to you, Mr. Starr, and it comes from our audience, and it's pretty simple and direct. Do you support a tip credit?
The tip credit is related to the minimum wage. And back in 1999, I voted for a bill that would have instituted a tip credit. The bill passed both the House and the Senate, and the governor vetoed it. As far as moving forward, I believe that Oregonians have spoken as it relates to Oregon's minimum wage. As labor commissioner, I will enforce the minimum wage. Oregonians are clear about what they expect as it relates to the minimum wage. Oregon does have second highest in the nation minimum wage. And I believe that over time, there needs to be a conversation with voters about this. Voters have spoken. I'm going to respect the will of the voters as it relates to this issue. And we will enforce the law as it is in statute put there by a vote of the people through the initiative process.
Mr. Avakian.
Thank you, Eric. Well, first, let's tell people what a tip credit is. Tip credit says that you can take workers in your restaurants that have an hourly wage, and you can deduct from their hourly wage the amount of money they get in tips, so that in fact they end up getting an hourly wage that's less than Oregon's minimum wage. I support the law that Oregonians passed in 2002 that does not include a tip credit. And I would never support a law like the one that Bruce Starr voted for in the state Senate that says that the state house, that says that you can take one particular industry like our restaurant workers and pay them less than a minimum wage, different from the rest of Oregonians that are working. I support Oregon's minimum wage, and I don't think any Oregon worker should be paid less.
Mr. Avakian, this question is to you first. Some feel there has been too much focus on getting students to attend college and less focus on vocational education and workforce development. What are your opinions on this, and what are your priorities for making sure that Oregonians can compete for current and future jobs?
Well, it's been my top priority to see the restoration of career education classes, and I have delivered for you. It's real. Brand new money for public education. This year alone, 21 middle schools and high schools with fully restored programs. I've put Oregon on the right track. And it's good for a couple reasons. You mentioned the effect on students. You know, 60% of our students don't graduate on time in 4 years in Oregon high schools. If they're involved in the kind of classes that I've restored this year, it's over 90% on time in 4 years. They may want to go to college, they may not. They may want to become a licensed electrician earning $100,000 a year with no college debt. But it provides them opportunities. And the best part about it for businesses is it provides a workforce with the exact skill sets that Oregon businesses need for the emerging jobs that are coming.
Thank you.
This
Mr.
is an
Starr.
This is an area where the Commissioner and I clearly agree, and I appreciate the work that has been done to bring career education back to our high schools. Supported the legislation. I'm disappointed, quite honestly, that it was only $2 million that we were able to identify in this current biennium. And I will support and will work toward expanding the program as Oregon's next labor commissioner, working with my colleagues in the legislature to make sure that happens. We have to recognize that the workforce is getting older, particularly in the trades, and we need to fill that pipeline. This doesn't say that college and university is not important, but I believe that it's important to provide choices and opportunities for young people so that they can choose which avenue that they want to take.
Thank you. This next question is for you, Mr. Starr. How do you feel about the current balance between business interests and workers' rights in Oregon? Is there anything that you feel is working particularly well, or do you think that there needs to be some change in some of the areas?
Well, I believe that the Bureau of Labor and Industry has to be balanced. You have to weigh the interest of both the labor side and the industry side together. It's not the Bureau of Labor. We're not electing a Secretary of Labor. You're electing a commissioner of the Bureau of Labor and Industries. There's two sides to the same coin. You can't have successful enterprise in Oregon unless you have workers that are taken care of and treated fairly. You can't have a thriving enterprise unless you've got those employees there. It's both sides. And I would suggest that under my administration, we will have a Bureau of Labor and Industry that is non-biased, that treats both sides of those equations fairly, and both the employment side and I would suggest in the public accommodation side as well.
Mr. Avakian.
It's a terrific question because it does take great balance to do this job and do it well. And I want to give you some facts that illustrate how we have struck that balance perfectly at the Bureau of Labor and Industries. On one side of the agency, where it's my job to protect Oregon's workers, more than $15 million in the pockets of workers who have been cheated out of their wages. 70 businesses that were sidestepping the rules, cheating their workers on public projects with taxpayer dollars, and unfairly competing against employers that do follow the rules. 70 of them are currently barred from working on public projects with your taxpayer dollars. On the other side of the agency, our technical assistance program that works hand in hand with Oregon's business community, 15 to 20,000 calls a year from Oregon's businesses relying on the services of the Bureau of Labor and Industries, with 96% of those calls being returned within 24 hours, and those businesses continuing to call us for help. We have great partnerships with Oregon businesses, and we protect the rights of employees.
This question is for you, Mr. Avakian. What do you have to say about private sector businesses who express concern about the amount of information required by BOLI to ensure compliance with state law when compared to adjoining states?
Well, it's very important that when the legislature passes laws that businesses need to follow, that they have a place that they can go to for free in order to get help navigating their way through very complicated state and federal laws. It's also very important that they can do that confidentially, so they don't have to feel like if they're in a sticky situation that they're going to get the whistle blown on them. That's what that one half of our agency that I just described does. Our technical assistance program is open every day of the week, every work day of the week, ready to answer phone calls from employers that find themselves in difficult situations and need help. And we do a very good job of that. And the 15 to 20,000 contacts a year from Oregon businesses proves it.
Mr. Starr.
Yeah, I would suggest that there's things that we can learn from our adjacent states. And as an Oregonian, it kind of pains me to believe that maybe they do it better in California or in Washington State. I've talked to businesses that operate in Southern Oregon that operate both in Oregon and California. Quite honestly, I've talked to businesses here in the Portland area that operate in both in Oregon and Washington. And they tell me that we basically have the same regulatory framework in these West Coast states, but that the regulations and the laws are easier to administer and accommodate as a business owner in those other states. So I think it's important for us to not assume that we have it perfectly right in Oregon. I believe that there's a number of things that can be done administratively through the agency to make reforms rather than having to go back to the legislature and ask for statutory changes. Though, in the event that we've potentially identified statutory changes that need to be made in order to help to grow Oregon's economy, why? So we can put more Oregonians back to work. We need to create economic opportunity for all Oregonians across the state.
We have arrived at that point in our discussion tonight where you gentlemen get to ask each other a question. And Mr. Starr, you get to have the first question.
So the question that I would ask the commissioner would be one about why he is opposed to hundreds of millions of dollars of private sector investment coming to our state and creating thousands of working family wage jobs as it relates to the bringing of coal and liquefied natural gas to our state.
We all want jobs. We need jobs. People are hurting here. First of all, we need good paying living wage jobs. And every time Oregon does something to help itself, like try and create jobs, it always has to make sure that we're maintaining the good quality of living that makes this such a great place to live, raise a family, and grow a business too. And frankly, having coal trains coming down the valleys of Oregon and down the gorge that are spewing dangerous materials into communities, to me, is not a fair trade. Especially when we have the best place on the globe to be investing in renewable energies like solar and wind and wave and geothermal. We could be investing in real jobs, and a lot of them right now, that would also preserve our good quality of living. That's where I would go.
And now your question for Mr. Starr.
Bruce, a moment ago, you said that as Labor Commissioner, it's important to be able to collaborate both with business and labor. And on this, we agree. With my support from business groups like Associated General Contractors, as well as groups that represent Oregon's workers, I have the support from both labor and industry. Bruce, can you name one group that represents Oregon's workers that is supporting you for Labor Commissioner in this election?
The labor organizations are supporting you, Brad, in this election. And for the most part, the business organizations are supporting me. Every Chamber of Commerce has taken a position in this race, from the Medford-Jackson County Chamber to the Salem Chamber to chambers right here in Beaverton and Hillsborough are supporting me. AgPAC, the largest association of agriculture groups in the state, are supporting me in this election. The Oregon Business Association are supporting me in this election. So you have a situation where you've got basically labor supporting one candidate. You've got the business community that are focused really on helping to grow jobs. Are we working hard to create economic opportunity for every Oregonian in every corner of this state? Is that what we're doing? That's what I'm going to do. And I think that the job creators in this state and the organizations that represent those job creators are supporting me, because I have a vision of putting Oregon back to work.
Time now for our closing statements, 1 minute each, and Mr. Starr, you will be first.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to visit with you tonight. I am Bruce Starr, and I'm asking for your vote and your support to be Oregon's next Commissioner of the Bureau of Labor and Industries. As a small business owner, as a legislator, I've been focused on creating economic opportunity for Oregonians across the board. That's what I've been doing as a legislator. That's what I've done in business. You know, this economy, it's not political. It's personal. It's personal to every Oregonian that's out of work and every family that's struggling to make sure their mortgage gets paid and take care of the needs that they have. We have so much potential in this state. If only we elected leaders that would unleash that potential so that we could grow Oregon's economic opportunity, Oregon's pie, and put Oregon back to work. I'd ask for your support so that we can get Oregon working again.
Thank you. Mr. Avakian.
Well, I want to thank Mayor Doyle and the BCCI and everybody who came tonight for really a terrific forum. You know, I know that people are hurting in Oregon right now. We have a lot of folks out of work and have had for a long time. We need jobs. To get them, we have got to show the world that we have the best trained workforce that you can find anywhere. And with the return of 21st century shop classes, with my efforts putting more than 6,200 workers in living wage jobs in good apprenticeships in Oregon, Oregon is poised to take advantage of the emerging jobs that are going to come as we climb out of this recession. I've got Oregon on the right track. I will always stand up for Oregon's workers and for Oregon's employers. And that's why I am the only candidate in this race that is supported by both. I'm Brad Avakian, your Commissioner of Labor and Industries, and I would be very privileged to have your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen. You know, that's the one problem with the voters forum, is that once we just get rolling with a race like this, which is a really interesting race, we have to cut it off, and I apologize for that, but we have several other races to get to. One on the agenda that won't be on tonight is the House District 34. Representative Chris Harker was unable to make it tonight. However, his opponent, Dan Mason, has a table in the back room, and if you'd like to meet and greet, he's back there willing to do that. Gentlemen, come on up. Our second race for this evening is for the seat of State Representative for District 27, which runs from the Raleigh Hills neighborhood in the northeast to the Murray Hill neighborhood in the southwest of Beaverton. The current incumbent is Representative Tobias Reed. He is seeking re-election. He is being challenged by candidate Burton Keeble. The order of the candidates this evening was drawn by the members of the BCCI. Tobias Reed was first elected as a state representative for District 27 in 2006. He's been elected and re-elected by his colleagues in the House as the Democratic whip. Tobias serves as the co-vice chair of the Committee on Transportation and Economic Development, as a member of the Committee on Revenue, the Joint Committee on Ways and Means, and as co-chair of Ways and Means Subcommittee on Transportation and Economic Development. He earned a bachelor's degree in politics and economics from Willamette University and a master's degree in business administration from the University of Washington. He lives in Garden Home with his wife and their 3-year-old daughter. Burton Keeble grew up in Central Virginia in the shadow of Thomas Jefferson's home, Monticello, and 6 miles from the birthplace of Meriwether Lewis. After 4 years in the Air Force, he attended Temple University, where he received his degree in psychology in 1970. He and his family moved to Oregon in 1979 and have lived in House District 27 ever since. He is a retired technical writer who spends part of his time as a Beaverton Police citizen volunteer. And our opening question, Gita, come on up. Gita Some Ajula has the first question, and she is a member of the Mayor's Youth Advisory Council. Gita.
Mr. Schmidt, do we have opening statements?
Not, oh, I'm sorry. I got out of, I saw Gita over there, Tobias, and I said, you know, she's ready to ask the question.
I'm eager to hear her question too.
Yep. All right, we'll get that. Let's get the opening statements done then first. My bad. It happens every year. Tobias, you are first.
Thank you. I want to use my time tonight to talk about something that's been troubling me. Mr. Castaneda, I want to address this to you. Your campaign has been sending out negative ads in recent weeks, vicious personal ads that attack my colleague and friend, Jeff Barker. Sir, your campaign has been hijacked by cowardly consultants who have no interest in this community, who hide behind their hit pieces, and who don't even use their own real name. We like robust campaigns in Washington County, and we have no problem with honest disagreements. But it's inexcusable to attack a man who has given so much to his country, his state, and his community. Jeff Barker is a Marine who put his life on the line for this country, and he was a police officer for 30 years. Now he serves as a chair of the House Judiciary Committee, where his common sense approach makes him one of the most respected members of the Oregon legislature. To attack him, as you have, is reprehensible. You should be ashamed of yourself and of your campaign. You can end all of this with a single call to your consultants and your friends in the Republican caucus. You're going to be up here shortly. The right thing to do would be to denounce these ads and to apologize to Jeff Barker and his family. We'll all be watching to see whether you do that. Jeff, your community has your back.
Mr. Keeble, your opening statement, please. Little decorum, please.
Okay, getting back to Oregon. Our nation is in a serious slump, and Oregon is leading the way, with higher unemployment, more people on welfare and food stamps, businesses closing and or leaving the state, and people losing their homes while waiting for a recovery that never seems to come. Here's part of why we are not seeing a recovery, in my humble opinion. Measures 66 and 67, which generated only 70% of the projected revenue increases and did nothing to promote jobs or business growth. We now levy a 1% tax on the gross of businesses, which translates into an average, a 10% tax on the net. That has caused many businesses to lay off workers, close, or locate elsewhere, and it discourages businesses from locating here. Right to work. Businesses are not attracted to forced unionism states, where wages are higher and collective bargaining is a detriment to the profitability. Aerospace and automotive industries are liberally sprinkled throughout right-to-work states, such as Indiana, South Carolina, and Mississippi, where the workers and communities are thankful to get those jobs. We need to attract similar businesses to Oregon by becoming a right-to-work state, while at the same time restoring income taxes to their former levels. This would result in significant economic growth, more employment for Oregonians, and a more stable economy. Unions. Payment of union dues and worker representation thereof should be optional. There was a time when unions were necessary to protect the workers, but that time has passed. The downside to unions is they have collectively bargained public workers' wages and benefits into unsustainability.
Mr. Keeble, I'm afraid your time is up.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, we're back on track now. Gita, come on up and ask the first question, and then it goes to Representative Reed first.
Sure. I'm Geetha, and I'm a high school student. So my question is about homelessness. So there were 1,842 homeless students in the Beaverton School District last year, an increase of over 200 students from the previous year. What ideas do you have to address the issue of youth homelessness?
Thank you for the question. It's a very significant issue, and I think the largest thing that we can do is to continue to grow the economy so that more families have more opportunities. We're not doing enough to fund schools and to give schools the resources to create flexible and innovative solutions for students. But I think it's a symptom of the larger economic challenges that we face. And so I think it's very difficult to come up with a single solution to homelessness. Rather, it's part of the whole economic agenda for the state.
Mr. Keeble.
Okay, well, I was shocked to learn that high school students and younger are living out of their cars. It is very pitiful, and it speaks very poorly for our state. I don't know of an immediate solution beyond sanctuaries in the interim, and finding some kind of employment for these kids that's a little longer term.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Gita. Appreciate it. Mr. Keeble, this question goes to you. Every year the legislature looks for money. They have to fund a lot of programs, and sometimes they find a big pot of money in the 911 tax fund, and they sweep it out of the 911 system into the general fund. If you were elected, would you vote to continue that sweeping process, or would you leave those funds intact?
No, I'd leave the funds intact because the 911 is vitally important to the safety and security of our citizens.
Representative Reed?
Mr. Keeble is right. It is vital, and that's why I've been one of the leaders in making sure that prepaid cell phones are subject to the same fees that the rest of us pay. Each of us who has a regular cell phone or a landline pays 75 cents a month to pay for the 911 services, but those who have prepaid cell phones are not contributing to the degrading infrastructure that's associated with our 911 system, and they should be paying as well.
This question is for you, Representative Reed. As you well know, Beaverton has something called a red light camera system. I'm sure you're familiar with it. I know I am. It takes legislative approval in order for the city of Beaverton to have that. Would you be in favor of legislation that would expand the red light radar system to include other crimes?
I think it would depend. I'd need to know a lot more about the specifics, but I do think the red light system has worked well. We see very compelling testimony and very compelling video when I was on the House Judiciary Committee that described and gave evidence to the good it does, the accidents that have been avoided, and the enforcement mechanisms that it makes possible.
Mr. Keeble.
Okay, well, yes, I'm in favor of the red light system. Initially, I was opposed to it. I thought it was kind of like Big Brother, but it has worked very well. And I know I've had a couple of squeakers where I'm expecting to get mail, and I got really lucky. But it slowed me down, and I'm sure it slowed a lot of other people down. It's made our streets safer.
This question goes to you then, Mr. Keeble, and we're just wondering, here in Beaverton, those of us who are involved in city politics and city government, if you would support the League of Oregon Cities' proposed constitutional amendment that would enable local voters to raise a local option levy outside of the statewide limitations and extend the maximum length of a levy from 5 to 10 years.
I'm not sure how I would respond to that. My initial inclination is no. I was at the round table where we learned about $50 million that they're hoping to get by passing legislation. And I asked a question, and they wanted to improve infrastructure. And so my question was, well, you're describing an if you build it, they will come scenario. I asked who was coming, and they could not tell me. I like guarantees before I spend money.
Representative Reed.
I would. Compression is a significant issue. The passage of Ballot Measure 5 in 1990, Ballot Measure 47 and 50 some years later has created a very distorted property tax system that limits the ability of local governments and local citizens to decide how to tax themselves to fund infrastructure. And infrastructure is one of the key elements to our economic capacity and economic growth.
This question is for you, Representative Reed. What is the legislature going to have to do with PERS?
PERS is a very difficult question. I think we have taken some important steps in the reforms that occurred in 2003, but I do think that there are some limited things that we can do going forward. For one, I am very much in support of Representative Barker's proposal that made some progress in the last session to say that if you are a retiree who has left the state by your own decision, we should no longer pay the offset against Oregon income taxes that you are no longer paying outside of Oregon. That saves about $25 million a year.
Mr. Keeble.
One thing that they can do is have the state paying less into PERS, leaving the contributions more up to the employee, at least until we have a more viable economy. That's it.
Okay. Time now for you candidates to ask each other questions. Mr. Keeble, you get to go first.
Okay. Regarding the Oregon Investment Act, there were several objections that bear consideration. The consensus was that the government should not be picking which private sector businesses receive the people's money. That decision should be made by private lenders who have their own funds at risk in the loans. Of specific concern was that the state would choose companies that produce renewable energy, usually at a substantial loss, to be made whole by tax credits, deductions, accelerated depreciation, and forced use of higher cost energy products. That would be a poor investment in any economic climate, especially a depressed one. My question is, what guarantees are there that money from the Oregon Growth Fund would be assigned only to those businesses which will be profitable and sustainable without further financial assistance from the state?
Given that the question took longer than 1 minute, it may be difficult to answer it in 1 minute. It probably requires a brief explanation of the Oregon Investment Act that we passed in 2012 that I think is one of the real keys for our economic development strategies going forward. What Mr. Keeble is supposing is not what's in the legislation. It creates the Oregon Growth Board, which is charged with constructing a comprehensive strategy and plan for economic development, but we were very clear throughout the discussion and construction of that bill that the Growth Board will not be picking individual companies to invest in and use our limited state dollars to support. Rather, it will be picking sectors. It will be backing private sector selected loans. So banks right now don't have the resources and can't meet the ratios that they're required to meet by the federal government, so that we can have, if we use limited state dollars to back some of those loans that are selected by private sector dollars, that are selected by private sector lenders, we can make those dollars go much further.
Gentlemen, it's time for your closing statements. Mr. Keeble.
Mr. Chair, may I ask Mr. Keeble a question?
Oh, It's been a long day, Representative.
It's only the second
It's only
one.
beginning, yes. Yes, you may.
Mr. Keeble, I'm curious, what's been your biggest surprise in your first campaign?
Good question. I had an imposter come to my door pretending to be one of your constituents in the hinterlands of my district. I found him out and couldn't really do anything about it. So that was one of the surprises. meeting all of the people. Generally, it's been positive. I've had a few negative door knock experiences. But in the main, it's been a good growth experience, and I'd say it's been character building.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And now we can build on our closing statements. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr.
want me to
Keeble.
go?
Yes, sir.
Okay. In the past 20 years, the population of Oregon has grown by a third, while the size of government has grown 166%. We need to shrink our bloated state government through streamlining of services, attrition, or other means to make it more affordable. Let's improve our economy by making Oregon business friendly. Let's make right to work state so that collective bargaining will not discourage businesses from moving here. Let's repeal measures 66 and 67, as well as the estate tax, which is redundant in the extreme and yet another impediment to attracting business. I'm running because I want to see prosperity return to Oregon. I want to help put our unemployed back to work and our underemployed into jobs and careers that are appropriate to their educations and skill sets. I want to see big corporations migrate to Oregon and all those business-based lease signs come down. When our economy returns, we will see a solution to most of our other problems. If I'm elected, I promise to craft and/or participate in bills that will address these problems. I ask you for your vote, and I thank you.
Representative Reed.
Thanks for the opportunity to be here tonight. I'm running for the legislature because I'm frustrated by the legislature and the state's focus on short-run problems and solutions. I think our best days are in front of us, and to get there, we need to focus on the horizon, not just the ground in front of us. For me, that means economic growth, and I think it's very clear that there are three elements to economic growth in the state. It's education, ranging from the earliest days of an Oregonian's life to postgraduate opportunities. It's innovation, making sure that we're cultivating an environment that is supportive of entrepreneurship and innovation, and it's infrastructure. At a time when unemployment is too high and our physical infrastructure is degrading, as well as relatively low interest rates, there's a significant opportunity for us to build things in a way that build our economy. I'd ask for your vote so I can continue those efforts. Thanks.
Thank you, gentlemen. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Now you know why I've never run for political office. I'd run a meeting and it would go amok. It'd be off. All right, we're going to hear from the candidates now for state representative from House District 28, which encompasses most of Beaverton and an awful lot of Aloha. Candidate Manuel Castaneda is running against Representative Jeff Barker, the incumbent. State Representative Jeff Barker has been serving House District 28 in the communities of Beaverton and Aloha since 2003. He retired as a Portland Police Lieutenant after 28 years with the Portland Police Bureau and 3 years with the Oregon State Police. Prior to that, Jeff Barker graduated from Portland State University with a Bachelor of Science degree in history after serving his country in the United States Marine Corps. Jeff has been happily married to his wife Vicki for 46 years. They have 2 adult daughters. One is an electrician with IBEW Local 48, and the other is a deputy district attorney in Multnomah County. When Jeff isn't knocking on doors talking to voters, he enjoys spending time with his 3-year-old grandson. Manuel Castaneda came to this country at the age of 14 from a Mexican village with no electricity or running water. He spoke no English, but in Oregon, he found a world of opportunity. After graduating from Forest Grove High School, he bought a lawnmower and a used Chevy pickup, and his landscaping business was underway. 26 years later, his company, Ply Systems, employs dozens of people on complex soil stabilization and seismic upgrade projects. Manuel is a member of the Washington County Business Council, the Hillsborough Chamber of Commerce, and he is on the Pacific University Board of Trustees. He was selected Oregon Minority Small Business Person of the Year in 2008. And our member of the Youth Advisory Board, who is going to be asking the first question, is Rupa Ujam. Rupa. Oh man, we've got to get those things. You guys don't really want to do opening statements, do you? No, we have to do the opening statements. Representative Barker, you will have the first one.
I'm Jeff Barker, and I've had the honor of serving this district for 10 years. I retired in 2001 in June, and my wife and I went to Washington, D.C., and we were there on the September 11th during the attacks. And we literally sailed through the smoke of the burning Pentagon. And just the whole atmosphere there was very, very difficult and different than you might imagine. At that time, I told my wife that day, I'm going to do something besides be retired. I'm going to continue to do community service of some sort. I had no idea it would be running for office. I had, didn't have that in mind. But after I came back, I was approached about running for office, and I thought that might be the answer to the solution I was looking for. So I ran in 2002 and was elected and have been there ever since. And I'm, again, proud to serve the district. Thank you.
Mr. Castaneda.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. It's a great pleasure to be here. I really, you don't know how grateful I am for all the opportunities I've gotten in my life, especially for my dad, who taught me a great work ethic. And I do believe that that is a strong ticket to get you ahead. I started, as you heard before, with a lawnmower and a pickup truck, building a business that now specializes in stabilizing complex engineering projects. What I have found, unfortunately, in the state is that it has become more and more difficult for the little guy to do anything here. If you just try to put some bushes in somebody's yard, it's so hard to do it here in Oregon. You need to take 7 tests in this state. I'm licensed in the state of Washington too, and all they want to know is if you have a bond or insurance so that the customers can be protected. That's really the kind of stuff we need. We don't need these huge bureaucratic obstacles that are being put on the little guy. And basically what we are doing is it's really killing the spirit of the entrepreneurs here in our state. We're shooting ourselves in the foot. So that's why I am running. And I would be the last guys to be running because I'm not a political guy, and in general, I don't trust politicians, so I'm going there to keep an eye on them.
Thank you. And now we get to have the Mayor's Youth Advisory Council question. I'm always so excited when we have this. When we introduced this to the voters forum, it really added a lot. So Rupa, take it away. The first question will go to Representative Barker, by the way.
With the Beaverton School District facing almost $40 million in budget cuts this year, we have some painful times ahead of us. How can you, as state representative, improve the quality of life for our youth?
Thank you for that question. That's a great question. There's a huge financial strain on the state, and we're searching everywhere we can to find dollars to put into the schools. I support, for one thing, taking the corporate kicker, which most of that money goes out of state when that kicks. I want to keep that in the Oregon in rainy day fund for the schools, and I'll do everything I can to keep making tough choices to keep trying to fund the schools at a level where they are able to have decent class sizes, good shop classes, as Labor Commissioner was talking about, and those kind of things to keep us all up and running. Thank you.
Mr. Castaneda.
Yeah, we know one of the big problems that we have is that we're going to have a shortfall of about $900 million for the state. And that is in big part due to big government pensions that we're having to pay, or basically make up the difference between what we told those folks that they could earn no matter what is a guarantee, and what is reality, which the markets haven't been doing very well. So we need to take care of that. The purse issue, it's a very important issue, and I think I can do a good job on that because I have no vested interest in it. We need people there with no conflicts of interest.
This next question goes to you, Mr. Castaneda. What would you do, what would you propose to help smooth out Oregon's revenue stream so that it is not as dependent as it is now on personal and business income taxes?
The state of Oregon doesn't have so much a tax problem as it has a priority problem as to how they spend the money. If we look at how we waste money, all around us, that's not acceptable. We should treat taxpayers with respect. And for example, I had somebody come over to ask for a job for me, and I told him he could have the job. He said he had been in unemployment for 8 months. He just refused it. I called the state and I asked him, hey, I had so-and-so here ask for a job. I offered him a job. He refused it. What are you going to do about it? They said nothing. So you're going to keep sending them checks? Yes, we don't have any other way. So that's not what we want. We all want to help someone who's in trouble, who lost their job, but we don't want to go in this direction.
Thank you. Representative Barker.
Thank you. I would continue working to help businesses get started with the different programs we have where they can assess funds. So we have good working people, good working jobs, good paying jobs, so people are paying taxes, and that will help smooth that out. I've talked to people on the doors who've said, I want a sales tax. I think it's time for a sales tax. I came here from California, or I came here from Iowa, or someplace else. And I say, what would that look like? And they say, well, we would eliminate income tax, or we would eliminate property tax. But everybody has a different solution. And so if you have 10 people talking about a sales tax, 9 of them are going to vote no because it's not the one they're thinking of. So I don't want to see a sales tax. I don't think that would stabilize it. But I think just improving the economy, putting more people back to work is the answer.
Thank you. This question is for you, Representative Barker. Some feel that Oregon's public safety budget is too large and that we incarcerate too many nonviolent offenders. Would you propose increasing, decreasing, or leaving the relative amount of funding for public safety unchanged at the state level, and why would you?
Okay, we're working on that now. The governor has a commission that's taking a look at sentencing and everything else to do with the crime commission. We don't lock up a lot of people for nonviolent crimes in Oregon, although the voters approved Measure 57 asking us to lock up more than we're doing now. Most people in prison are violent criminals. Over 70% of those convicted of a felony in Oregon do not go to prison. It's a surprising statistic. The budget is big. We're looking at that. We're trying to figure out what to do. I've worked on the Public Safety Ways and Means budget, and I've just spent a couple days with Colette Peters, the Director of Corrections, and trying to figure out what we can do. But the public needs to be protected from violent felons, and the public has asked us to put repeat property offenders in jail.
Thank you. Mr. Castaneda.
In general, the state of Oregon is doing fairly well compared to other states. We don't have a huge crime problem. I mean, we all do. I just got hit by someone who broke in and stole one of our pumps. But, you know, I wish that was happening, but in general, we're doing better. Crime has been going down. And I think some of the things that we have been doing there to fight crime have worked. And we should try to be careful about changing things that are actually working.
This question is for you, Mr. Castaneda. It comes from our audience. What are you going to do to make sure people who want job training can get it in high school?
I'm a big proponent of vocational schools and the opportunity for people that are in junior high or high school to have an opportunity to learn a trade there. I used to have shop classes when I went to school. We used to have auto mechanics and many other opportunities. Today, some of these young kids go over and they'll ask us for work, and we are looking for qualified people that have some skills, but sometimes they're 20-something years old and they have never done anything. And it's really not their fault, because we have made it almost not cool to learn to work with your hands. And that's really what we need. We need mechanics, we need fabricators and machinists, and many of those trades that we're not seeing anymore.
Thank you. Representative Barker.
I'm a very strong supporter of vocational training. I'm a 1961 graduate of Benson Tech in Portland. And in those days, that school we trained people. Another legislator, Greg Smith from Eastern Oregon, his dad was a year behind me, majored in plumbing, went to work right out of high school as a plumber. There was another kid I went to high school with that I saw last year at the 50th anniversary reunion. He was going to drop out of high school. He lived in Idaho. His mother or grandmother lived in Portland and said, you can come here and go to a school that has shop half a day. He came to Portland. He graduated from Benson High School. He went to work for Iron Fireman and retired as an executive with Boeing last year. So those are really important. And my daughter, I have a daughter who dropped out of college who's a journeyman electrician. So I understand that the trades, and we need the trades, and as Manuel says, you're looking for employees, you gotta have somebody that has the skills, somebody that knows what a wrench is, somebody that knows how to, a screwdriver, knows what tools are, and how to use them. And I can't support that strongly enough.
Next question is for you, Representative Barker, and it's the same question I asked of the previous panel about the 911 taxes. Does the legislature, should it be sweeping those funds into the general fund?
No, it absolutely should not. The 911 tax is very important. It's 75 cents a line. The one problem that I think was mentioned in that was that people that buy prepaid cell phones don't pay that 75 cents, and that's important. The 911 system keeps improving all the time, and there's more technical things. They need that money. I ran the 911 center. I was a supervisor in the graveyard shift back in 1980 in Portland, and so I could see the things. In those days, it took us an hour to lock down a line to get a trace. Now they can get it virtually instantly, and those kind of things cost money to update, and where they can track your cell phone. So if you call for help and are unable to finish your call, they can find you. So no, that money should stay in the 911 fund.
Mr. Castaneda.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think there is a tax that I would pay with more joy than a 911 tax, because that's when you're in trouble, you want someone to respond quickly. And the last thing we want to do is probably have this money go to the general fund, and then they'll spend it in any way they can. And I don't believe they would spend it wisely.
Time now for questions for the candidates from the candidates. Mr. Castaneda, you have the first question, and it is 30 seconds with a 1-minute answer.
Jeff, one of the biggest problems that we have today is here in Oregon is obviously the economy. And how do we get it moving forward? As you know, I have been running a small business for over 26 years, and I know how to create jobs. The other big problem that we have is this PERS unfunded liabilities. How you said when you ran the first time that you were going to run to fix that.
Question.
You never fixed it. So
Question.
what, do you have something different this time?
We did fix it. We made major changes in 2003 to the PERS system. We eliminated the step one, and we didn't eliminate, but we stopped step one, step two. We created what is now called OPSERP or tier 3, which doesn't accumulate those massive amounts of money. We made other changes that the Supreme Court on a 7-0 decision said we could not do because of the Oregon contract law. You can't promise somebody and have them work their lifetime for you and then say after they retire, tough luck, you're out of work. For the last 2 sessions, I've carried a bill that would take away the tax offset for people who have moved out of Oregon, which they now get, even though they're not paying Oregon taxes. It's supposed to offset Oregon taxes. I've drawn a lot of criticism from my retired colleagues, former colleagues, who live out of state. They're very angry about that. But that would put $78 million back into Oregon, back into the PERS system, so that the schools and the cities could hire police, fire, and teachers. Thank you.
And now your question, Representative, for Mr. Castaneda.
Okay, I support eliminating the corporate kicker. And where are you on that position? On that issue?
I don't remember the last time that the corporate kicker was sent out, because we've been in the reds for so long. So I don't think we need to worry too much about that. But if we have the opportunity to really discuss it, I think if we put it in a rainy day fund account, where it's not in the hands of all the politicians to just spend it as they wish, I would be open for discussion for that.
Closing statements now, Mr. Castaneda.
I am running for this office not because I one day aspire to be a politician. That is the least thing that I would aspire to. You saw in the beginning here of the previous presentation, that is the face of politicians. Who would want to go there? I mean, I am constantly thinking about this. Why would I want to go to a place like that? Who would want to do that? No wonder good people don't want to run. And, you know, this special interest, the lobbyists, the special interest, they're all circle the wagons. And as soon as they see someone normal or a little guy trying to make it or shine the light on them, they get scared and they'll do anything to bring you down. Thank you very much, and I hope to get your support this November. And I can promise you that I will go back to work and I would be a normal guy all the time.
Thank you. Representative Barker.
Thank you, and thank you to the city for having this event tonight. I really appreciate that. When I ran for this, I said I wanted to be a state representative. I don't want to be a senator. I'm not looking for another government job. I don't want to be the governor's governor or anything else. And I've stuck to that. When the Senate seat came open, when Ryan Deckard stepped down, I was the first one to get a hold of Mark Hass, Senator Hass, and ask him to please step back in and get back into that. This is all I want to do. So it's a job I like and a job I'm doing well, and that's what I want to continue to do. I want to continue to be your state representative. I hope to do this for another term or two, and I will continue to work hard for you, just as I have. I've listened to people, listened to what they have to say, and enjoyed broad support from both the business and labor communities in this case, because I will work with anybody down there. My door is open to all people who come in to see me, whether they support me in the campaign or not. It makes no difference at all. And I thank you and would certainly appreciate your vote in November. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. We really appreciate you being here. Well, we got the closing statement part of that one right, didn't we? All right, we're going to shake things up just a little bit. Traditionally, we've stuck to candidates and not to issues, but tonight we're going to go to an issue. With so many important state ballot measures for Oregon voters to decide upon this November, BCCI felt it was important to feature at least one to help voters better understand their statewide impact. This evening, we're going to hear from representatives speaking on behalf of groups in proposition and in opposition of Measure 84. If passed, Measure 84 would phase out the estate tax and other taxes on property transferred between family members. Joining us tonight is Kevin Mannix from Common Sense Oregon. He's representing the proposition, the pro side, and Jody Weiser of Tax Fairness Oregon, representing the opposition, the opposing side. Thank you both for being with us in Beaverton tonight. It's a pleasure to have you here. Kevin Mannix is an accomplished attorney, a former Oregon legislator, and the author of 5 successful citizens initiatives. Those were initiatives that went to the ballot and were passed. 2 years ago, he was approached by some farmers who asked him to take a look at the Oregon estate tax, which some people call the death tax. They were concerned about the future of family businesses and farms in Oregon. This led to the development of what is now Measure 84. Kevin has been married to Susanna for 38 years. They have 3 children and 3 grandsons. Tax policy wonk Jody Weiser is a former business owner. She co-owned and later sold a family farm to other families. She is a nonprofit founder, an early childhood educator, and now a political policy advocate for Tax Fairness Oregon. Tax Fairness Oregon is a nearly all-volunteer citizens group advocating for fair, adequate, and stable taxes. Tax Fairness Oregon is often called out as a tax watchdog group. They are in the Capitol daily during legislative sessions. Prior to the 2011 legislative session, Jody worked with the Oregon Law Commission in rewriting for the legislature Oregon's estate tax law. And now we have opening statements from each of our panel participants. Mr. Mannix, you get to go first.
Thank you, and thank you all for participating in this forum, and I thank everyone at home for watching in a desire to better understand the candidates who are out running and the issues that confront us. Measure 84 does come to you from a citizen initiative signed by 132,000 Oregonians who asked their fellow voters in this state to take a look at the estate tax and to make a decision to phase it out over 3 years. The estate tax in Oregon is imposed at the time of death on your entire estate, and your estate means your home, your furnishings, everything that you own, your retirement fund, your insurance, whatever it may be. The tax itself can be devastating for small businesses and for family-owned businesses because this tax is imposed on top of the federal estate tax, and it comes at the worst possible time when a loved one has died and the family is trying to deal with that, and then the tax man appears saying, well, you have an estate, We value this estate at current market value, and with the $1 million deduction, after that, you have to pay from 10 to 16% of what you have already paid taxes on all your life. You've paid income taxes, you've paid property taxes, doesn't matter, you will be taxed again. In terms of fairness and an opportunity for folks to build up their family-owned businesses, small businesses, we ask you to vote yes on Measure 84.
Thank you. Jody?
So I'm here representing Tax Fairness Oregon, Defend Oregon, and about 50 other community, union, business, and other groups from our state who believe this is a bad idea, and we hope you will vote no. The Oregon estate tax has been in place 109 years. Family businesses have been being passed on for 109 years successfully, despite the fact that we have this tax. And it brings in significant revenue that is important to our state. It brings in currently about $100 million a year. That's enough for a week of school or 1,200 teachers. That's a lot of more teachers that we could have missing from our classes if we get rid of this tax. The estate tax really is our most progressive tax. Only the top 2% of Oregonians pay the tax. That's because very few families have more than $2 million to pass on. It's a $1 million exemption, but if you're a couple, that's $2 million. And that $2 million passes absolutely free of all tax. It's only the amount over that that would be taxed. So if a family, for instance, had $4 million, the tax on that would be $205,000. The heirs would still get virtually $3.8 million. But there would be this small $200,000 bit that would go to continue to help everyone's children.
Thank you. We have rebuttals. Mr. Mannix.
Well, when we want to talk about this system, please understand that it's in the hands of the legislature and they can change it anytime they want. This is why we have a 3-year phase out and then we eliminate it by vote of the people. It would be eliminated as of January 2016 to give the state a soft landing. Even though this tax is less than 1.5%, less than 1.5% of state revenues, we simply reduce it by 25% a year for 3 years and then eliminate it. But we eliminate it for a reason, because if you let the legislature play with it, watch out. In 2011, they passed a bill in the House that retroactively increased the tax on people who had already died. At one point, the deduction was $300,000, not $1 million. Let them play with it, and they will keep coming back. It could be your firearms collection. It could be your mother's jewelry. It could be your stamp collection. They can tax whatever they want unless we get rid of this tax. That's why we need to pass this measure.
Ms. Weiser.
In fact, Mr. Mannix, what's happened with the estate tax is it has become ever more generous to the wealthy. In 1975, the exemption was $60,000. It's now $1 million. If the minimum wage had kept up with the estate tax in terms of the growth in value, the minimum wage would be paying about $60,000 a year. So obviously, the changes the legislature has made have benefited the wealthy, not the average Oregonian.
We now have some questions from BCCI, so Ms. Weiser, you'll get the first one. A recent report by the Oregon Employment Department concluded, oh, man, I blew it again, didn't I? MYAB, it's right there. And we have Aaron Cochran is going to ask the first question, and then I'll get to ask that question from BCCI. Aaron, you're on.
Why, thank you. Good evening. My name is Erin. I am the sister of a severe special needs sibling who requires 24-hour care, which could cost $8,000 to $16,000 per month for the rest of his life. From the perspective of a family who has set aside assets to address the care of a special needs child, what impact will this measure have on those families?
Ms. Weiser, you have the first answer.
I'm sure that if your family has assets that they've put aside for your sibling, it would have no effect on your sibling's situation, because you could set money aside in trust for special needs people now, and so it would probably have no particular effect at all.
Mr. Mannix?
Well, actually, if mom and dad are setting aside assets to take care of the special needs member of your family. Those assets are subject to taxation. Jody has talked about opportunities to set up trusts and that sort of thing in the past, and there's a problem with that because you're always going to have to bring in lawyers and accountants, and you're going to have to try to figure out how do you pull yourself out of the tax code. And right now, the estate tax contemplates taxing all of the estate of a family, and there's no special consideration given if you have a special needs member of your family that you've set money aside for in your family. There are devices where you can give up control of the money, but that's not the same as a family caring for their own family member. And I think that is one element that's never come up before in the debate, and I appreciate you bringing it up.
Thank you.
Well, then this question will go to you, Mr. Mannix. A recent report by the Oregon Employment Department concluded that the income gap in Oregon continues to widen. Since this is a tax reform measure, how do you see it helping or hurting that trend?
I think we have to talk separately about the income tax system, the property tax system, and any other tax systems, because the income tax system is designed to be progressive, and I support that. The estate tax system in the state right now is designed without paying any attention to anything else to simply say if you have a certain value, whether or not it's in your business or your farm or whatever else, we're going to tax it and we're not going to give any other consideration. If you own a hardware store in downtown Portland and you've built it up over 30 or 40 years, that building is part of your estate. The inventory is part of your estate. And in the estate tax system, they make no consideration to the fact that you may have employees, that business may have to close in order to pay the tax. Farmers are worried because the tax applies to land that may have been in the family 100 years. One of our chief petitioners is 26 years old. She's a farmer. Her parents are running the farm, but her 97-year-old grandmother still owns the farm. When she passes, they're going to have to pay the estate tax, the grandmother. When the parents pass, they're going to have to pay the estate tax, the family. And then she has to see whether or not she can carry on the farm. I'm talking about Marie Bowers. She's one of the folks that we relate to in terms of trying to get rid of this tax.
Thank you, Ms. Weiser.
So can I respond to that question?
Absolutely.
Okay. Mr. Mannix continually brings up farmers as examples, even though he was in the Capitol testifying just this year about the natural resource credit that the legislature set up, which actually exempts virtually all farms in Oregon from paying the tax. Probably massive organizations like Tufel Nursery or the Stimson Lumber Company would still be required to pay. But if a family is worth less than $30 million and more than half of their estate is in natural resource property, then the natural resource property portion of their estate can pass tax-free up to $15 million. They'd only pay on the parts over that. It's a very simple thing to use according to CPAs who work with farmers. And they have many choices to make about which portions of their farm estate they want to have in the natural resource credit and out.
This question is for you then, Ms. Weiser. Does Measure 84 create capital gains tax loopholes apart from the estate tax?
The measure has two portions. One is the phase-out and elimination of the estate tax, and the second is a provision that defines as a death tax in Section 4D an intra-family transfer. So what it says is if there's an intra-family transfer, there'll be no tax. This means that a family member could sell, for instance, say I had some stock that I bought for $100,000 or a piece of rental property, and I was ready to sell it. I could sell it to my son for its current value. He could give me an IOU, and I would avoid paying any state tax on that, the gain that I'd had in that, whether it was $100,000 or $400,000 worth of gain. It would pass tax-free because I sold to my son. And there's really nothing in the provision that would keep him from selling it when he's ready to sell it, since he would then own it.
Mr. Mannix.
Not true. Ms. Weiser went to the Explanatory Statement Committee and tried to get them to include the scheme that she described in their description. They refused. She tried to get the government-sponsored Fiscal Impact Statement Committee to include that scheme in their statement, and they refused. And the reason they refused is because this is not correct. What she's coming up with is something about a transfer outside the family. We are only talking about property being shared within a family. The law is very clear about that. Now, she keeps coming up with this at every forum, and I keep pointing out that if you want to understand what it really means, read your voter's pamphlet and read the fiscal impact statement, the financial report that's in there. I didn't write those. These are written by other folks, and you will see there's nothing in there about it because this is a boondoggle of the mind. It does not exist. Please understand that what we were trying to do is to avoid the legislature have backdoor taxes. Once you eliminate the estate tax, they'll come up with a gift tax or a family transfer tax, some other way of getting back at you for no longer having an estate tax. And we said, you can't do that. We're protecting the family from those tax schemes.
This question is for you, Mr. Mannix, and as long as we're on the family theme here, and it comes from our audience, if a family receives part of an estate from another state but lives in Oregon, would the estate tax affect that family?
It's a good question. The estate tax is imposed in Oregon on Oregon estates. Now you may, and I'm not a tax lawyer, I'm not an estate planning lawyer, so I'm always cautious about saying this. If you're receiving something from another state, you may have income in Oregon that may have to be dealt with that way. But the Oregon estate tax in Measure 84 only deals with Oregon estates and not estates from other states. I will say this, if you have land in Oregon and you reside in another state, the estate tax will still apply here in Oregon based on any real property you have. As to whether or not you receive something from another state, that's probably income that you have to deal with under Oregon law, but I want to be careful about that. I'd say check with your accountant or your tax lawyer.
Ms. Weiser.
I totally agree, and I think he just indicated how easily one could check with your accountant or tax lawyer about any of the provisions of the law. It's not that hard to actually do tax planning.
Well, we got agreement on one thing. Lawyers will get rich off of this one way or another, right?
Now, they'll only get rich if we don't pass.
Yeah, okay. This will be then for you, Ms. Weiser, and it comes from our audience. As affluent members of the community, should we not have a proper financial plan to cover this estate tax? They ask, can't we, the affluent, plan for this by using life insurance?
Yes, life insurance is simply an investment, and some families choose to invest their money in life insurance. Generally, that would be families that have businesses tend to do that most, because there's really not much difference between having stocks and bonds and selling some of those or using life insurance proceeds. What life insurance does is it guarantees a certain amount of money whether you die soon or a long time from now. So for instance, in our family business, we had life insurance on the key business people because we didn't know when they might die and insurance might be due. And in one case, the family lived for a long time and it wasn't a great return on investment. In another case, my brother died very quickly after we bought the insurance and we had a fabulous return on investment.
Too bad for your brother,
He is
though.
not alive.
Yeah. Mr. Mannix.
Well, the problem here is we're imposing on some families, especially families who may have century farms, who may have owned a business for 100 years. They simply want to keep the business going. And we say, well, you got to go to accountants, you got to go to insurance agents, you got to go to lawyers to go through all kinds of expensive planning and contrivances to try to reduce the impact of this tax. Why don't we simply say, hallelujah, this tax is gone. Do the best you can to grow your business, to hire people, to invest in the economy. This is why we've got the support of the Oregon Farm Bureau, the Family Farm Association, the National Federation of Independent Businesses, folks who believe in entrepreneurship and contributing to the economy. And when you've built this up, you should be able to pass it on and not have to dance to the government tune. Right now, you have to dance to the government tune and hope that you don't get hit. I got to mention finally, 58% of the filings on this tax are for estates under $3 million. The super rich may find ways out of it. The other folks who've been small business entrepreneurs are the ones who get nailed.
I'd like to thank both of you for sticking to your time limits tonight. This has been quite refreshing in that regard. So we have closing statements now, and Ms. Weiser, you have the first word.
So you've heard Mr. Mannix mention over and over family businesses, especially farms. We've looked at what actually are in estates of the 1 million size that is our exemption level in Oregon, 2 million for a couple. And here's what we found. 90% of what's in estates is stocks and bonds, homes and other real estate, cash. And there's a little bit of insurance, there's a little bit of art, stuff like that, but tiny percentages, 1 and 2%. 10% of what's in estates is farms and family businesses. So obviously, we're using the poor family business owner, the poor farmer as under threat, as a whipping dog. And actually, we're trying to make it so that the top 2%, 700 families a year, can pass everything, keep everything for themselves, and increase the wealth divide in our state and underfund our government.
Thank you. Mr. Mannix.
If you're looking for a reallocation of resources, there's a federal estate tax. It has a $5 million deduction, and they can deal with what I'll call the super rich. But here in Oregon, what we are doing is we're going after folks who have worked hard all their lives to build up something that they can pass on to their family. And we're making them either dance to the state tune for years to try to minimize the damage, or worse, end up having to break up a business or sell parts of a farm in order to take care of this tax. You don't have to believe me. Check with your Farm Bureau representatives in your county. Talk to the Family Farm Association. Talk to the small business folks who've got the business on the corner. Ask them what they think. Steve Miller, who owns a hardware store in Portland, iconoclastically called Hippo Hardware, will tell you he's got 12 employees. He founded the business in 1976. If this tax stays in place, he doesn't know how he can pass it on to his daughter or to his employees. Believe me, they believe in this. They believe in the need for this change, and this is our opportunity to take this yoke off the back of, it's just a few folks. Friends, you may be next.
Thank you both. Thank you both for coming to Beaverton tonight. We really appreciate it. Okay, I've got 2 more shots to get this right, so let's see if we can pull it off. We're going to hear now from the candidates for our local state Senate districts. First up is Senate District 17, which covers parts of Multnomah and Washington counties, including Beaverton neighborhoods Five Oaks, Triple Creek, Central Beaverton, Denny, Whitford, Raleigh West, and West Slope. Joining us this evening are Senator Elizabeth Steiner Hayward and her opponent, candidate John Verbeek. Senator Elizabeth Steiner Hayward was appointed to the Oregon Senate in December of 2011. As a family physician at OHSU, Senator Steiner Hayward is passionate about improving our health care and our health care system. She believes that the goal should be a health care system that makes high-quality primary care more accessible and more affordable for everyone. That is why she actively promoted the passage of Oregon's recent landmark health care reform measures. She is the immediate past president of the Oregon Academy of Family Physicians and currently serves as the director of the OHSU Knight Cancer Institute Breast Health Education Program. Senator Elizabeth Steiner Hayward lives with her husband Michael, 2 teenage daughters, and her mother-in-law in unincorporated Multnomah County. In 1995, John Verbeek gave up his corporate career in international banking because he and his Oregon spouse wanted to give their 2 children a home and educate them in Oregon. His entire career has been in the private banking, investments, and insurance sector. Born and educated in the Netherlands, he became a United States citizen in 2004 and a precinct committee person, a PCP, in 2008. He ran in the 2010 primary for Metro Council to promote independent businesses and jobs. 2 years later, he ran once again as a candidate for state senator. The Verbeeks live in the Sunset High School area. And now for opening statements, Senator Steiner Hayward, you have the first word.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate all of you taking the time to come out this evening and listen so that you can make an informed choice. It is an extraordinary privilege to serve as a state senator, and one that I have enjoyed far beyond what I would have expected. As a family physician, I care really, really deeply about forming partnerships with my patients to help them make healthy lifestyle choices and really achieve good health. And I also look at them as whole people, as whole context of whole families and whole communities. And this is why I chose to become a legislator, because I realized that for me and for everybody, to be healthy, you need to be well educated. To have great jobs in this state, we need a healthy, well-educated population. We need to look at things from a system perspective. In my time, my 9 months so far as a senator, I've had the opportunity to learn an extraordinary amount about lots of different things that contribute to the overall health of our state as we broadly understand it. And I've been forming partnerships, just as I've formed partnerships with my patients, with all of my constituents, and going out and talking with them, learning from them, hearing their concerns, and I'm very excited to continue doing that.
Thank you. Mr. Verbeek.
was born and raised in the Netherlands, and when I came to Oregon, I could not believe what a negative business environment, how negative people talk about private enterprise, and that's something I like to do something for the small businesses. If small businesses, the independent businesses, if they do better, and I define an independent business as a business that does not have the government as its main customer. If they do better, a lot of problems get solved. We get more funding, more tax revenues. That's one item I like to do through regulatory reform and tax reform that Governor Kitzhaber is asking for. A second point is education. I'm the father of two scholar athletes, not student athlete, but scholar athlete. That is a beautiful thing in the Oregon school system. It's possible, but too many kids fall between the cracks. We focus all our money on the top end of the students and the special ed students. What happens to that big middle class of students? Do we educate? What are the choices that we make? And I like to also to focus not to solve our problems to bigger government, but to strengthen our laws. The government it is limited what the government can do for you. Thank you.
Thank you. And now the Mayor's Advisory Board member, and it is Lauren Bartholomew with the first question, which will go to Senator Steiner Hayward.
Thank you. So I have a pretty simple question. How do you plan on securing funds for public schools?
Thank you for a really important question. We are, as several people have mentioned tonight, in a funding crisis for our public schools, and this is something we're going to have to solve. We're not going to solve it overnight, but there are some significant changes that we can make quickly if everybody is prepared to look at innovative solutions. We believe that there are administrative savings that can be had if we choose to centralize a lot of the back office functions of many school districts across the state. We think it's possible to save up to $400 million if we do this, and that's money that we could put back into hiring new teachers and creating smaller class sizes. In the long term, we need to stabilize funding for our schools so that we can ultimately increase it. It's one of the state's most important jobs to provide for our children's education.
Mr. Verbeek.
I think you are too young to worry about money. That's something parents should worry about. I think we have to look at the curriculum at the high schools. Well, what I noticed with my own kids is the peer pressure in these schools is just unbearable, especially on girls. And so I would like to focus more on the curriculum. You know, what do we actually teach? Sex education is so focused on sex. What about love? And so I don't receive that question about money, except to say that if small businesses, if our economy is doing better, all funding problems get solved.
Mr. Verbeek, this question is for you, and as the father of a sophomore at the University of Oregon, I understand that there is a certain need for funding for higher education. We hear an awful lot of talk about funding for K through 12. What are we going to do to make our higher education system more robust?
The number one question for employers in Oregon is the Oregon system does not produce qualified people. And so what I like in the whole discussion in higher education, there is more debate. University of Oregon and Portland State, they reject some of the proposals that the other universities and colleges are making. And that I like. I like that debate and come up with good solutions. I'm not going to tell an educator how to educate. We have perfectly capable people in our education system. But do we still want to win? Why do so many students focus on soft skills, alpha topics, and they don't want to study engineering and math? They should come with proposals like OHSU does for medical training. Maybe we can do that for scientific and mathematical training.
Thank you. Senator Steiner Hayward.
We have some extraordinary opportunities in Oregon right now. We've already done remarkable work in connecting the curricula between high schools, community colleges, and our four-year universities so that high school students can get college credit before they even graduate from high school. We need to continue to expand those efforts. We need to continue to expand the ability of our Oregonian students to attend community colleges where they can receive an affordable education in their first 2 years. And that will allow our four-year universities to focus even more efforts on partnering with industry in this state. And I think that's a really important thing. We need to understand what the jobs of the future are going to look like so that we can be sure to prepare students so that they will understand how to be effective members of our workforce in Oregon. And if we can focus on getting the basics done in high school and community college, our universities will have more opportunities to train students for future jobs.
This question is for you, Senator, and it's from a student in our audience tonight. We've heard a lot about vocational training in schools. What will you do to make sure our schools stay on top academically? And that is brought out. Additionally, what will you do to prepare students for re-emerging STEM fields as well as the trades?
I'm going to tackle the second part first, which is just to point out that I have the privilege of serving as one of the 2 senators on the state STEM Access Task Force, because this is something that as a physician, as a scientist, I am absolutely passionate about. I'm passionate about education in general, but STEM education is critical. And frankly, to quote my predecessor, now Congresswoman Bonamici, we need to make it STEAM and include the arts, because we have to have the creativity that teaching about arts allows us to be good engineers, to be creative scientists. We need to understand about the interaction. So we need to look at incentives. We need to integrate STEM education very early on in early childhood and elementary school so that kids are well prepared when they get to high school and higher education. We need, furthermore, to help differentiate students, not to track them, but to help students identify their passions. And those who choose to pursue vocational education do that, and those who are motivated toward higher education have the academic resources they need.
Thank you. Mr. Verbeek.
Yeah, I don't worry so much about the top performing students and academics. I think academic integrity is a huge issue, even at every university, truthful research. But I worry about the average student, the good kid, but who is not a top student, but I want them to succeed. That is our society 10 to 20 years from today. And we are not delivering. What are the skills that the UFO graduate and Oregon State graduates graduate with? We should focus more on those issues. Stem cell research, that has so much, we already talk about it with smart people. I want to talk about the things nobody talks about.
Thank you. Mr. Verbeek, this question is from our audience. Oregon is one of the most beautiful and well-planned states in the country. How can we balance urban sprawl, business friendship, and environmental openings with the uniqueness of job growth and clean alternative energies?
Yeah, that's the big catch-20. That's a big question. I think what we have in Oregon is mushrooming state agencies and who pass all kind of measures. And there's no, within the state agencies, there's no separation of powers. You know, who checks those? So that's why I think regulatory reform is important. Every Oregonian cares about the environment. But even about, the whole discussion about coal exports. Coal is where solar energy is stored. Why can't we make that clean? We can't have an honest discussion about it. Even a U.S. Senator White was hissed at when he tried to discuss it. That is the kind of academic dishonesty that we have to get over. We have to be honest about academics.
Thank you. Senator Steiner Hayward.
I would argue that it's actually a false split to say that we have to oppose protecting Oregon's great sustainable growth and environment with promoting job growth and development of small business. Many areas of the country and places in Oregon have proven that we can have all at the same time. We can create businesses, we can grow businesses, we can create jobs while still protecting Oregon's growth and making sure that we keep Oregon one of the most beautiful states in the nation. We need to look at models from other places. Some of the countries in Europe have done an amazing job of working with businesses to develop new energy sources, and those have created jobs while protecting the environment at the same time. I don't think it's an either or. I think it's a both and.
Senator Steiner Hayward, this question goes to you. The Oregon House last year had 30 Republicans and 30 Democrats in it. The Senate, in which you served, had 16 Democrats and 14 Republicans. There was a certain amount of bipartisanship that by necessity had to go on. What kind of qualifications do you bring to work with members of the other party to get things done for Oregon?
You know, I'm a family doctor, and that means that I have to respect and do respect diversity of opinion, diversity of thought, diversity of background and experience, and I have something to learn from every single person. One of the very first people I sat down with in the Oregon Senate is Senator Ted Ferrioli, who's a Senate Minority Leader, because I wanted to learn from him. He's an experienced person. He brings a different perspective. He comes from a part of the state, John Day, that I love and have had the privilege of spending time working in. We have enormous amounts to learn from each other. And if we sit down and listen respectfully to each other, I think we find more often than not, that there are a lot of places we agree. And we can learn from each other when we disagree. I've formed very strong working relationships with a lot of my Republican colleagues, both in the Senate and the House already, and I have every expectation that I'll continue to do so.
Mr. Verbeek.
I've been my entire life in finance and in business. You know, you're not extreme. I think it's important that in a state like Oregon, where one party is so dominant and so dominating, that we still have good opposition, and that we take in the extreme and go somewhere that everybody feels represented with. I always work with other people. In finance, you don't tell people what to do. You help them understand what the financial implications could be. You indicate possible scenarios, and then there's certain limits that you adhere to. But I'm not somebody who says, you know, this is the way I think, and I think you should think the same thing.
The next questions come from you, and Mr. Verbeek, you have the first question for your opponent.
I always like to ask a person in their field of expertise, or at least what they studied, questions. And so as soon as we leave our district, Senate 17, you see all these shops, medical marijuana. And I can never get a straight answer from a medical person. Is that an oxymoron, medical marijuana? Is it medical or is it not?
There are certain conditions where I believe the evidence supports using marijuana as a limited part of a treatment plan. But I don't know that the widespread use of it is ultimately in everybody's best interest.
Your question for Mr. Verbeek.
What do you see as ways that you can reach out to the constituents of this district to engage them and help solicit their ideas and understand their needs and best represent them?
People accuse me that they don't believe that I'm the person with picture of my flyer, because I've been going to so many doors, lost so many weight. Most people in the district, and I've talked to hundreds of them in all corners of my district, and most people are quite thoughtful. Even people that have stickers of my opponent, president, on the car. When I knock on the door, they say, "I'm not an ideologue." What do you have to say? You know, people are quite thoughtful in our district. Most of them are quite well educated. They want to see cooperation of the parties. And I tell them what happens nationally is not what happens in Oregon. We can make it work in Oregon. Oregon is a small state, and there's a lot that unites us. But we do have to have more debate. And so that's what I'm hearing.
Time now for our closing statements, and Mr. Verbeek, you have the first word with the closing statements.
Well, John Verbeek, citizen of Oregon, I try to help small businesses. It's my main focus. If they do better, then that resolves a lot of idle youth. They get jobs, apprenticeships, and the funding gets solved. The second item is education. It's extremely important that we have educated citizens, and we really are betraying our kids the way we educate at this moment. And the last thing is, don't put government into every decision what we make. Let's focus on the laws and strengthen our laws and keep the government as a strong regulator, but not as a referee who starts playing calls and starts playing a football game.
Senator Steiner Hayward.
Thank you. I want to thank Mr. Verbeek for participating in this process and for putting himself forward as a candidate. I think we all benefit when we hear lots of different ideas. I'm the 4th senator in this seat in 9 years. My predecessors, including Labor Commissioner Avakian, have left for really good reasons. I'm thrilled Suzanne Bonamici is my congresswoman. But my district deserves to be represented by someone who's in this for the long haul. As Representative Barker said, I really can't imagine a better way to serve my community than being in the state Senate. Being an effective legislator requires being a lifelong learner, an excellent communicator, somebody who builds relationships and really gets to know the issues well. I'm eager to serve this community for a really long period of time if you'll have me. And I commit to serving you with integrity, with an open mind, with constant outreach for engagement, and just to be there to help. Thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, the candidates for State Senate District 17, thank you both for being here. Well, last but certainly not least, we have the candidates for State Senate District 14. Senate District 14 covers an area south of Tualatin Valley Highway and Beaverton-Hillsdale Highway, with a little sliver that goes up through Raleigh Hills and Sylvan, including a small section of Portland. With us tonight are candidate Gary Coe and the incumbent Mark Hass. Gary Coe was born in Portland, a graduate of Sunset High School, attended Portland's... Oh yeah, we better get that right. Can't tell the players without a program. Mr. Coe has been attended Portland State College for 2 years studying business. He's been a business owner in the area for 45 years. He currently is retired from his 7 small businesses. He is campaigning full-time for the Senate seat in District 14. And outside of work, he enjoys his grandchildren, snow skiing, canoeing, and bicycling. Senator Mark Hass is an experienced and accomplished legislator, a dedicated public servant. He is always looking for ways to make a difference in his community. He serves as the chair of the Senate Education Committee and is best known as an advocate for students and schools. When the legislature isn't in session, he works for a brand identity firm in Portland. He lives in Raleigh Hills with his wife, 2 kids, and their golden retrievers. The opening statements tonight. Mr. Coe, you get to go first.
Thank you. My name is Gary Coe. My campaign for the Senate is based on 3 key projects: education funding, job creation, and spending discipline. My children attended Beaverton High School, and now I have grandchildren in school. So the current school funding crisis hits very close to home. I don't believe that the answer is additional property tax levies. I believe the answer is for the state government to properly fund schools. Now, I believe that there are 3 ways to do that. The first is job creation. In the February 2012 session, there were 7 jobs bills introduced, and unfortunately only one of them passed. We have to elect the right mix of moderate Republicans and Democrats that will find the compromise and pass those bills. Second, there are 180 state agencies, and you have to agree with me that there might be some room for some consolidation and maybe even some elimination of some of those functions, and I do have examples. Third is a complete overhaul of our tax system. Currently, our schools are funded out of the general fund, which only represents 25% of the state revenue. I will propose a large portion of the state agencies' fines and fees into the general fund, and then the legislature reallocate the money back out for operating budgets.
Thank you. Senator Hass.
Thank you, and thank all of you for hanging on this long. It's in the 12th inning of the New York-Baltimore game. It's 1-1, in case you're interested, and we'll try to wind this up so you can maybe go home and watch the end of that. In the other contest tonight, Joe Biden won the vice presidential debate. I believe the best way to determine how someone will perform in the future is to look at how they performed in the past. And I'm very proud of my accomplishments. Full-day kindergarten, which was a priority of the Beaverton School District, cutting administrative waste in an obscure part of our system known as educational service districts, millions of dollars every year that will go into classrooms, higher education restructuring so that our universities can put the brakes on tuition, economic development, including a new enterprise zone for Beaverton, where a software company is expected to announce a new job announcement next week, a modernization of Oregon's famous bottle bills. Those aren't just speeches that I gave or ideas that I have. Those are things that became Oregon law. And you expect that from your legislature, to do more than just give speeches or print out brochures or put out bumper stickers. And that's what I've done. Those are not speeches, those are law now. I'm very proud of those accomplishments because I think actions speak louder than words.
Thank you, gentlemen. Our first question comes from a member of the Mayor's Youth Advisory Board and a member of BCCI. She's wearing two hats tonight. Thank you for being here. Yamini Naidu with your question for Mr. Coe.
Thank you. So my question is, in many schools, student-to-teacher ratios are increasing, extracurricular activities are being cut, and student high school dropout rates are increasing. What will you do to address these secondary education issues in Oregon?
Well, the first thing is we have to reduce the class size, and of course that takes dollars to do that. And I just laid out a plan to that I think that we can bring additional dollars into the school. I am very concerned about the dropout rate. As a matter of fact, when the Oregonian reported that the Portland Public Schools, which I understand is not here, but increased from 58% to 59% graduation rate, I thought that is absolutely unacceptable. And even statewide, it's it's around 70% graduation rate. So it's a big problem, and I think that what Avakian talked about was about the bringing the shop classes back in is a very important part to keep interest of those people that are not clerical, technical in nature.
Thank you. Senator Haas.
This is not a new issue. In fact, it's one of the issues that prompted me to run for the legislature more than 10 years ago. What we can do to shore up education. Two things recently: full-day kindergarten is now a reality. It's part of education policy in this state. That will have a dramatic effect even on graduation rates, according to the research, because kids can learn to read proficiently in third grade as a result of full-day instead of half-day kindergarten. And people think that they start to graduate or drop out in high school or 10th, 11th grade. They actually start dropping out in 5th or 6th grade when they start struggling. Full-day kindergarten is one thing. Cutting waste in schools, which I did in the 2011 session through ESD, administrative waste, that will put more money into the classroom. So those are two things that I've done recently to get at this program. I know we need to do more. I know we need to be relentless on this issue.
Thank you. Senator Haas, this question is for you from our audience tonight. Is there anything being done at the state level to deal with property tax rates? It seems like rates vary widely, even within neighborhoods with like style type of homes.
Is there anything being done at the state? That is a constitutional issue. It was passed by Measure 47 back in the 90s and passed again through Measure 50. Voters passed those constitutional measures that locked in property rates and said they could not grow by more than 3%. What has happened, however, is this notion that's very complex known as compression, which has had all kinds of effects, but one of them is that if I live across the street from Gary, my taxes may be twice as high as his. And there's all kinds of inequities. We need to address the property tax issue. It will take a constitutional change. But in my opinion, that is just one of the problems wrong with our tax code. We need a wholesale, top-to-bottom reform of our tax code, including property taxes, including the volatility of our heavily dependent income tax in our property tax code. And that is just one of the things wrong with it. And we are ready for a whole-scale, top-drawer, bottom-drawer reform of our tax code.
Thank you. Mr. Coe.
And I believe the governor is putting together a group to work on that, and I absolutely agree that we need a complete overhaul of our tax structure and how the money flows in and flows back out of the government. It's very interesting that Washington County has handled property taxes very differently than Multnomah County, and when I say that, certainly they work within the same laws, but during this recession, when property values declined, you could see on the tax statements that they actually did decline in Washington County, and yet Multnomah County actually increased in value. It's very curious.
Mr. Coe, this question is for you. Historically, the Oregon legislature has been characterized by partisan games, closed-door caucuses, and the like. What specific technique will you employ as a legislator to achieve bipartisan support in legislating?
Thank you for asking that question, because I've answered that several times at the door as I've gone door to door. There is one of my goals is to assign each one of the guys in, each one of the senators in the Republican caucus, go make friends with one of those guys on the other side of the aisle. And I don't care if they're in the House or in the Senate, go to dinner, go to lunch, create a dialogue, make friends with somebody over there, because that's the only way that we can eliminate partisanship. And you can especially see this in Congress where we're about this far apart, and we need to be about this far apart so that we can find compromise and make things happen.
Senator Hass.
Well, I would argue with the premise of that question. In the last 2 years, the Oregon legislature has worked in a very, very bipartisan fashion in two of the most productive sessions in at least the last 20 or 30 years. Compared to Congress, especially in other states, the Oregon legislature has been like a Sunday school. And I'm very proud of the bipartisanship that's been on display by the two co-speakers of the House and by the majority of the Oregon legislature. So I think, and this is borne out by approval ratings, the legislature and the governor over the last 2 years have worked together to create a lot of product and solve a lot of problems in this state, and I think that that's going to continue.
Senator Hass, this question is for you. It's from our audience tonight. As a state senator, please identify your top 3 priorities for state funding in their order of significance.
For state funding?
For state funding.
Well, the way Oregon government works is half of the budget goes to education. A lot of people are surprised to hear that, but more than half the budget goes to education. So if you argue for a smaller government, what you're really arguing for, Gary, is a larger class sizes and less money to schools and education to our universities. So obviously education is the top of that list. And my priority in the next session is to expand this notion of dual credits, where more high schoolers can earn college credits. This is a huge play on the college affordability issue that I've been working so hard on in the last couple of years. And so probably I would tell you that my first, second, and third priorities for funding in this next session is education, education, and education.
Mr. Coe.
I agree with that. However, Mark must be looking at different numbers than I look at. The all funds budget, education is about 10% of what we spend. And that's why I propose to bring fines and fees from all of those agencies into the general fund so that we can create a much larger general fund, and then the legislature has the control to allocate out to the various agencies their budget.
I'd like to respond to that. The all funds budget includes federal health care dollars and includes college tuition, and to use the all funds budget is pretty naive, Gary, in this context.
Senator Hass, let's go back to our questions here. Oregon is pretty much of a rural state for all intents and purposes. We live in Beaverton and we think of ourselves as suburban urbanites, but there are vast areas where the federal government owns a lot of Oregon. How are we going to reconcile what the federal government is doing with Oregon lands and what it can mean to the state of Oregon?
Well, that's a tough one. I think, I've been an advocate for our forest products industry and the battles they fight every day on private and state land. And I think we're moving forward there when we're making progress with sustainable forestry. And at the same time, while we're making progress there, we're falling behind in the litigated federal forests. And to be honest with you, I think that the U.S. Forest Service could take some lessons from what the state is doing and work together on the kinds of modern forestry that's going on now on state forests and private land.
Thank you. Mr. Coe.
The congressional representatives in Congress for Oregon have been working with the Bureau of Land Management to try to open up the federal forests, and which makes up, I understand, about 55% of Oregon. And of course, not all that has trees on it, but there's a lot of it that has trees on it. And we need to do that because there are a number of counties that will no longer get tree subsidies, and the shortage of money will be to the point that we may not even have sheriff's offices in some of these counties. So opening the forest for logging along with the current rules that's already in place is absolutely essential.
Time now for your questions for your opponent. And Senator Hass, you have the first question.
Gary, the legislature this year passed 2 landmark health care laws. Can you explain how you would have voted if you were in the legislature, why or why not?
I would have supported both those bills. Governor Kitzhaber is from that industry, and he designed the bills pretty much. And he came to the Republican caucus and asked for their support in exchange for his support on some other issues. And I think that we have to, you know, some people have talked about trying to change those already, and I said, no, you have to give it 2, 3, 4 years to see how this is going to work. Yes, I would have supported those.
Well, in your literature, you said that the legislature has failed Oregonians. Those are the signature bills of the 2012 session. So what you're saying then is you would have supported 2 of the most significant bills in that legislature, and yet you don't see a contradiction there?
No, I don't know where you said that that my legislature said that or legislature failed.
You're saying that in those ads.
The legislature did fail the Oregonians in a number of areas, and one of them is education dollars.
Do you have a
question for him?
All right.
Mark, with the Beaverton School District needing to trim $37 million from their budget, what did you do as chairman of the Senate Education Committee to help ease that pain?
I had 3 or 4 bills specific to the Beaverton School District that saved them money on testing materials, helped them with healthcare bills. But on a larger issue, I was known as one of 2 chief advocates for education. They would have been cutting a lot more had I not been down there. We are at the end of 4 years of a difficult recession. Everyone knows that. And the money that will be saved from cutting administrative waste in ESDs is money that will help Beaverton and other schools throughout the state.
Time for our closing statements now. Senator Hass.
Thank you. I think you know me. I think you know my accomplishments: full-day kindergarten, universities, lower tuition, more college credits in Oregon high schools, cutting waste in ESDs, jobs for Beaverton, cutting healthcare costs. These aren't speeches or brochures. These are new laws. Anybody can talk a good game. It's easy to take pot shots from the sidelines. It's much more difficult to pull people together, as I have done in 12 years, Republicans and Democrats, and push them and their ideas and my ideas into law and actually solve problems for the state that I love. Actions speak louder than words. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Coe.
I'd like to point out the vast differences between Mark Hass and myself. Mark's campaign funds are largely from special interest groups and large corporations. My campaigns came from, contributions came from family and friends. Mark has worked as an employee all of his career. I as an employer. Huge difference when your butt's on the line to make payroll. Mark touts his private sector experience, yet his votes create a record of more regulation and increased taxes on the private sector. Mark claims one of his greatest accomplishments is the all-day kindergarten. However, this is an unfunded mandate placed on all schools in Oregon, not just the Beaverton District. I promise to never support an unfunded mandate. I commit to you to opt out of PERS, as I see a conflict of interest when the legislators are beneficiaries, and I commit to you to be the hardest working senator in Salem. And finally, I ask for your vote.
Thank you, gentlemen. We appreciate both of you being here tonight, despite the hour. Thank you for the update, Senator Hass. We appreciate it. Thank all of you for attending tonight's forum. If you haven't filled out the blue card, take a few minutes to do so. Drop it off. It'll help us for the next time we have this voters forum. Don't forget to vote. Registration ends October 16th. Ballots go in the mail October 19th. Good night from Beaverton.